Okay, now the next step is we're going to go through our ingredients. Since we're making two different recipes today, I'm not going to confuse you by going through all of the ingredients. We're just going to go through the Kofta Skewers first, okay? So if you have the recipe printed out in front of you, just make sure that you have your meat ready. You can use beef or you can use lamb. That's up to you. Then we need some garlic. We will need an onion. We need some parsley. We will need some ground herbs. So we have coriander, cinnamon, and cumin. All right, so our spices and herbs. And of course, pepper and salt. I don't have to show you this, but you have that ready to go, I'm sure. Then we'll need a little bit of oil for the frying pan. Are both of you going to fry your skewers today? You're going to chuck them on the barbecue later. How are you going to cook them up? When you're not cooking them straight away, place them on a plate or a tray and keep them in the fridge, okay? Because it's going to be raw meat. So don't leave it out. It's quite a warm day outside. All right, so our equipment that we'll need for the first recipe will be a grater. Okay, we'll probably need a plate to catch what we're grating. It's going to be exciting because that's, I think, something you don't grate that often. Then we'll need a mixing bowl for making our meat mixture. We will need the skewers. As you can see, I have already soaked them. And I'm not sure if you have done so. If not, it's not a problem. You can put them in some water now. There will be plenty of time for them to soak. The reason why we're doing this is because when you're going to put them onto something hot to fry the meat or to grill the meat, they won't catch fire as easily, okay? Because they're wood or bamboo, which burns quite quickly. All right. So, chopping knife, depending on what you're comfortable with, a big kitchen knife or a smaller vegetable knife. And then I will be using scissors as well for the herbs, but that's up to you, okay? Now, we're going to make some space on our chopping board and we can get started straight away. So I will keep the onion on my chopping board because that is what we're going to start with, our beautiful onion. And what we're doing with it is we are going to grate it. This is going to be a fun thing to do. So I will use a plate to catch the grated onion. It's going to be really, really juicy, okay? Really runny and really juicy. So make sure not to do it directly on your chopping board unless you've got one of those really, really thin ones that you can bend and then use really flexibly to pour it into your bowl. Otherwise, it will be hard and will soak into your wood. So use a plate underneath. I'm not saying bowl because I find it easier with my grater to use it on a flat plate. If your grater is just one single grater, sometimes it's just the one thing, you can place it into a bowl, okay? So whatever you're comfortable with to use your grater, do it that way. And we're using this part of the grater. So in my case, it's the smallest, well, one of the smallest cutting parts of the grater. So that's ready. Now we need to peel our onion. And since we're not cutting it today, chopping it with a knife, you don't have to leave the root bit on. So just peel all of the dry skin off, okay? You can cut off both ends, so the growing end and the root end. That's easier for you to get the peel off, like this. And then just one step up from cutting an onion because a lot of essential oils will come out. So what I will do, I will drown my onion in some cold water before I start grating. That way, I will buy myself some time before I will start crying. So this way, the water helps to keep the essential oils locked on to the onion a bit longer. All right, and once I've done that, I will start grating away. Fantastic. Yeah, so in the recipe it says 4 cloves of garlic. Now that is something you can decide for yourself, whether you're a big fan of garlic. and also how big your cloves are, right? If you've got some massive cloves, you can go 3. If you've got tiny cloves, you can go 5 or 6. See, there's a big difference in the size of cloves that you could have, this one and that one. So that depends on your own judgment and preference. And if you're changing something to the recipe, you can take a note, get a pencil or pen, and write it on top of your recipe. So when you want to look it up later, you can remember what you've already experienced, what you've learned, so you don't have to make that same experience again. So you'll know it for the future self. Okay, I'm going to grab these 4 big ones, actually. I really like garlic, so I don't mind. And I will show you 2 ways of how you can actually mince the garlic. I'm not going to use a garlic press. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. I don't need to explain how to use that. But you can, first of all, to get the garlic peeled, is you crack it, right? You put your knife flat on top of it and your palm and push your weight on top of it until you hear crunch. All right, I'm going to do that with all of them. Crack and crack. And then I've got the peel is quite loose on it now, and it should just pop out. And I cut off the 2 end bits, and then it's super easy. It just pops out like that. To be exactly the same what we've done with our onion, we can just grate it. Just grate the garlic through the grater. Make sure you don't grate your fingers. Yes, what is it?
How much do we use if we're using already minced garlic?
Minced garlic?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So you can just use, depending on how you like the garlic flavor, I would go maybe 3 teaspoons, not more.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Let me just go now. And then you sprinkle some salt on top. That will help draw out all of the juices. And then you have your own minced garlic. There you go. That's already a nice amount. Beautiful. Space. And I will leave this for chopping up a bit smaller. And when I chop garlic, I'll put it on its side and I go with my fridge grip. So I hold the pointer finger and the thumb together like this. Oh yes, what's up, Oscar? Is that a raising hand?
No, I'm just done mincing.
Okay, beautiful. So here, watch this one. In case you don't have access to a garlic press or a grater, imagine you're going camping and you want to cook something up, or you're going to a friend's house and you don't have those tools, right? You chop your garlic like this. You cut it in half first, keeping your fingers away from the knife. Then you've got 2 flat sides. You put them on the flat side. So again, holding the tunnel grip, fridge grip, however you call that. Cut it into strips, yeah? And then doing the claw grip, tucking your fingertips in, so just your first knuckles of your fingers are showing, and they're keeping the knife at bay, okay? So your fingertips are safe, and your knuckles are holding the knife, they're guiding the knife. You go and chop your garlic strips into little cubes, okay? Once it gets too small to hold, you are just going over with the knife in the bouncing way, like a rocking chair. I'll show you in a sec. All right, cutting the strips again into little cubes. And again, and start squishing. And you will see how really juicy it will come really quickly. So that's how you can make your own minced garlic. There we go. A lot of juices are drawn out and it's getting really mushy. Almost the same as when I grate it. All right, beautiful. I'll pick it all up, add it to my mixture that I already have. So I've got all of the garlic and the onion together. And I'm going to put that to the side now for the moment, okay? Out of the way. And now the next step will come is chopping the parsley. I've got this flat leaf parsley here. You can use also continental parsley, doesn't matter. I recommend you are actually using the fresh stuff, not the dried herb. If you have that, it's not a problem. Cooking is all about finding substitutions and working with what you've got. I don't want you to get scared not to be able to do a recipe if you, for example, don't have 1 or 2 ingredients. There's always a way to still create the recipe that you want with some substitutions. So I'm cutting off a big handful of my fresh parsley. Here we go. Do you have your parsley already ready? Did you chop it already as well, Oscar?
Yeah.
Oh, you've prepared everything. My goodness. All right, so this is the parsley I'm going to use. It's like a nice handful. That's my portion. Okay, I'm going to give it a wash. Have you chopped your parsley as well, Liviana? No. Okay, so grab the parsley, give it a wash if you haven't done so.
We didn't have fresh parsley.
All right, that's no problem then. Are you going to use some dried parsley?
Yeah, we've got that.
Beautiful. Is that like an Italian herb mix? Or?
It just says all natural parsley flakes.
All right, beautiful. You will use that. And I think it says here 4 tablespoons of the chopped fresh parsley. If you're using the dried one, I would recommend start with 1 tablespoon. Don't go crazy because usually it's more concentrated with the dried one. Right? You get more. Yeah. All right, I'm going to chop up mine then. I'm going to keep it all together. That's how you can chop the herbs yourself. So keep your fingers out of the way and just chop all over again. Hand on top of your knife and just go crisscross. I would recommend not to use the thick stems. Pluck off the leaves and just use the really fine, young, thin stems of the leaves. All right, so I've got the parsley ready to go too. And I'm going to make some space on my chopping board by adding it to my mixture that I already have. Here we go. Beautiful. And now comes our step where we're going to mix it all together with the meat. So grab a large bowl. Beautiful. Thanks for showing that to me, Oscar. Grab a large bowl where all of the ingredients will fit in. Fantastic. Yes, that looks like a good size. And now we're going to add our minced meat. Now this is another little tip. When we're working with meat, try and only work with one hand. Try and keep the other hand away from the raw meat. So when we're mixing dough with our hands, we usually use both hands for kneading. When we're working with meat, try and just knead with the one hand. That will keep your other hand free to hold on to the bowl without being all sticky. Plus, once you go to wash your hands from the raw meat, you won't be touching the taps and your sink with the other hand, okay? Usually it's also enough to just use the one hand because you won't have to use as much strength as you do with the dough. Okay, so I've got the meat in the bowl now. And the next step is adding all of our nice and juicy garlic, onion, and parsley. It goes in there. Beautiful colors. And now we're going to add the spices and herbs. I'm going to start with some cracked pepper. A few rounds, depends how spicy you want it. Then a little pinch of salt. When we say pinch, we usually refer to whatever fits. I'm going to show you. Whatever amount fits between your pointer finger and your thumbs. Yeah, that's referred to as a pinch. A pinch or two of salt. And then we have left our cinnamon and our coriander, and cumin. So for that, we're going to use a teaspoon each. And since they're spices and you can't really do much wrong with them, I will measure it straight over my bowl. If you're not sure about the spices, I would recommend that you measure it outside of your bowl. That's always safer. So if something goes wrong, it will go onto a chopping board and not into your food. Because once that is in there, it will be hard to rescue it, okay? So measure it outside of your bowl. For example, if it comes out really fast, here we go. That's my coriander now. Sprinkle it on top. And again, measure it outside of your bowl. Coming out. Cumin. Here we go. And that's going into. All right, now we have all of the ingredients in there. Since I'm going to fry it in a frying pan, I'm not going to add the oil, what it says in the ingredients. Since you are going to put it on the barbecue, I recommend that you put a dash of oil in there. A tablespoon should be enough, okay? Get some good olive oil, tablespoon, and measure your olive oil in there as well. That way, it will be perfect on the grill and won't get stuck onto the barbie. Okay. When you've added all of your ingredients, we can start kneading. And now you can just get crazy with just squishing with your fingers because you want to make sure that all of it is evenly incorporated into the whole mixture. All of the onion, all of the herbs, all of the garlic. And you will see how the meat is going to start breaking down and getting mushier and mushier. And getting them ready on my chopping board. Now what I didn't use the small skewers because I have so many of the really big ones at home, and I just chopped those ones in half. All right, and I will stick in the bit that is not the chopped bit into my meat. So I won't have the little hairs here. It will stay out. So that's how I made 2 skewers out of 1. Now, for the kofta itself, is that enough? Can you see that well? I'm grabbing a portion. It's about this size. So you can see yourself when you made the first one, whether it's too big, and then you can adjust. So for me, it's like that much of my palm, right? It's like a big meatball, basically. But I've rolled it into this kind of like a sausage shape, yeah, like a small sausage. And then I'll stick the skewer in through the middle. Let it poke out a little bit on the top. There. And then putting it down where it's going to rest and giving it a little squish from the top so it's flattened. All right. And then we can just put it into shape. Nice and flat. In the end, when we cook our meat, there's lots of moisture in there. It will also shrink a little bit. So keep that in mind when you're making your skewers as well. Forming it again with my hand. Try and only touch the meat with my one hand if I can. If it's too hard, use both hands, of course. Now putting the skewer through and then shaping it, placing it down. Make sure the skewer is nicely through the middle so it doesn't fall off, okay? There we go. And that step we'll just be repeating about 20 times because that's how much you should get out of it in the end. Cook it through. All right, I am heating up my cooktop, adding some oil. And once the oil is nice and hot, I will place the skewers in here and try not to flip them too much, but have them cook on the one side and then flip them to the other side. How do you know that the oil is hot enough? Usually we can use a nice trick with a piece of onion, because onion and garlic is usually the basic of every recipe, mostly. Since we don't have some chopped onion here today, I will just be observing the texture of the oil, how it's changing as the pan's heating up. Because if you look closely, you can see how it gets runnier and how the color also changes of the oil. Okay, you can smell it. So this is when using our senses in cooking comes in very handy. You can feel it holding the hand over. Ooh, it's quite warm. You can smell the oil heating up and you can see how the texture is changing. Don't use touch. This is where we're not using touch. We're just using the other senses. All right. To me, it seems like if I put in the first one, it will probably start sizzling. There we go. It sizzles nicely. I don't know if you can hear it. All right. That means I can place in all the others too. I'll gently lift them up. Place in my frying pan. You can see it sizzled all the way around there. Try and place them all three, please. Each other. When we flip them, I don't recommend you to use your hands. I'm putting them in carefully. And after that, we're going to use the tongs. Okay, you want your hands far away from the frying pan as possible. Now we're just going to watch as well and observe how the meat is changing. As it's being cooked, it also changes color and texture. So what do we need now? Let's go through the ingredients for our tzatziki. Are you guys ready to go? Beautiful. All right. So we will need yogurt. We will need a cucumber. We will need some mint. I'm going to use fresh mint again, but you can use the dry mint like it says in the recipe. We will need some olive oil, some minced garlic, and some salt for seasoning. All right. I will start with the cucumber. And I will grab a little bowl. Oh, where did my bowl go? Hang on a sec. So we can chop it up and put it straight away into our bowl. All right. I will chop off the ends of the cucumber. And then I will slice it in half using my bridge grip again, right? Pinky finger, pointer finger and thumb. You can use your whole hand as well and slice it through. So you've got the two halves of the cucumber, okay? Then place it on its flat side so it doesn't wobble around. And now we're going to cut it in strips. Again, small strips, because we don't want our dip to be chunky, okay? So cut it in small strips. And then perpendicular into small little cubes. So it looks like this. And I haven't used, you might have noticed this, I haven't used the fresh chopping board in this case or given it a wash because the ingredients that we're using for this second recipe are going to be quite the same. So we're also going to use garlic, we're also going to use some fresh herbs, and we haven't had raw meat touched the chopping board. So that way, it is totally fine to just keep working on the same chopping board because you won't have different flavors mixing into our recipe now, okay? I'm just going to pick up cucumbers, put them in here. For half a cup of yogurt, which is the measurement for this portion of tzatziki, I would say half a cucumber, and this is a Lebanese one, is enough. If you like it, the flavor of cucumber, go for it. Add another half. Or test it and then add the other half. Okay, so now we've got half a cucumber chopped small in our bowl, and we are going to chop the mint. Or, since you're not using mint, fresh mint, I'm assuming. Is any one of you using fresh mint? Wow,
I've got fresh mint this time.
fantastic. This is so much nicer with fresh mint. All right, I'm going to grab a handful like this. Yep, give it a wash. Oh, it smells so good. I love it. And how I'm going to chop it is I'm going to use my large chopping knife, my kitchen knife, because it's much easier to chop herbs. You can, of course, use your scissors. So if you want to do it with scissors, just go really small pieces like this. And just go chop, 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 small parts. I'll make the camera easier. As you can do. You just need to be a bit patient because you don't want big chunks. Or I will actually go for my knife, keep it all together like this, and first cut them all into strips, using the tiger claw to hold on to my pieces and my thumb to keep it all together. And then I have it to these little strips. And after I've got it, the first step, I will go again with my seesaw, okay, all the way across and make it smaller. Use a knife or some scissors, Viviana, for your fresh mint.
I used a knife.
Fantastic. All right, add your mint to your cucumber. Now we've got the cucumber and the mint in here. Let's mince up some garlic. Because it's a dip, I recommend if you have fresh garlic, use fresh garlic this time, because it does have a different taste to the fresh one if you're using minced garlic. Since we're not going to cook the dip, right? We're going to eat the dip as raw as it is. When you're using minced garlic, it's a good substitute when you're actually cooking it later. But if you don't have any other alternative, go for it. All right, I'm going to chop this nice and small again, making those strips. Small strips. And then cutting them into small cubes. It's as small as it gets with my fingers in the way. And now, fingers safe. And again, the seesaw chop. Have you tried anything new that you haven't tried before today? Yeah? What is it?
I haven't grated onion before.
You haven't. How was that?
Onion.
Yeah. Half a cup of yogurt. Measured it out from my tub. Placing that in here. Putting a fresh spoon to get all of it out. Okay. And give it a good mix. Mix it all the way through. And now we are going to add a pinch of salt. And a little drizzle of oil. A teaspoon is enough. We just wanted to help make the dip nice and smooth. It will really add something to the texture by bringing in that oil. All right, now we have all of our ingredients combined, and I would ask you to taste test it and see if you would like to add more yogurt or some more mint or a little bit more cucumber. And if not, then you know that this is exactly the amount that you need. This is a great opportunity to try it out, because one crucial part of cooking is also testing it before you actually serve it to others. And as you let it sit, it will also develop a bit more, because all of the flavors will soak into the yogurt and then will become even more flavorsome once you serve it together with your kofta. And those two, the kofta and the tzatziki, go so well together. You will see when you try it for dinner. Now place the yogurt dip into the fridge also, because it's yogurt, it's a milk product. You don't want to have it sitting on the kitchen bench. Cover it up and put it in the fridge. And that is basically the recipe for today. Well done.